Toller,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartline.
Yes, sir.
Next on the agenda is the employment agreement for the assistant ambulance director, which is a contract.
Make a motion to approve the contract for the assistant ambulance director.
Second.
Commissioner Feller,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Foster,
Yes.
Commissioner Toller,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartline.
Yes, sir.
You ready? Are there any committee reports? We have a 911 meeting.
Nothing really to report out of the meetings. Another month. State's still sending our money. We're at the old surcharge amount still. We probably won't see the new till September. Hopefully we'll actually, it'll come through.
Anything back pay on that, or is that effective?
Well, they're just that far behind on
Okay.
sending our checks. We get a check every month. They never miss a month sending it. They're just that far behind on actually, on the remittance.
Okay.
But I did have a contract, or a question on the contracts and the memorandum of understanding. When I was hired, the 911 board was advised to do a memorandum, because that was what the county was going to across the board for everybody, that all administrative positions would be at-will employees. So has that changed now?
What do you have now?
A memorandum,
Okay.
because that's what the 911 board was advised to do,
Well, because I talked to Steve, and Steve told me that he thought you had a contract.
memorandum.
Okay. All right, and I'll, okay.
Well, that's upstairs 911 board.
Well, but they were advised from the county and that this was the way they needed to go to be uniform across the board.
If I can just clarify, the county did take the position that all administrative employees would be at-will employees. Apparently, that's not the case anymore, but that's between you all. But that is the direction that the board gave to the 911 board,
Okay.
just so the record's clear.
I didn't get that direction, in case you're wondering.
I think that was before Angie was here.
No, I was here, but it didn't come from me.
What was the timeline on that, if anybody remembers? When was that advisement given?
May of 2017.
Tyler, from a legal standpoint, was that your perspective as what you suggested to the board for them to do that?
I don't make substantive recommendations regarding policy decisions, but I was asked by the board how those should be handled, and I explained to the board the pros and cons of an at-will employment arrangement versus a cause standard in a contract. And the board, I don't know if they ever made a vote on it, but that was the direction that the board took. It makes no difference to me.
Right. Less than.
My substantive concern is with consistency, which is not what I'm seeing, but that's a different matter.
But that's not true. Maybe with the direction before, but the consistency of the 4 employees that we have now that's under a contract and adding the 2. And I know what you're saying about consistency of
I'm
the
not sure that
direction.
you do know what I'm saying, but you go right ahead, maybe you do.
Well, no, I'm talking about you're talking about from the direction prior.
Yes.
Yeah, and I get that. And I understand that. I'm just looking at it as a whole, that we have 6 employees that we're talking about, and 4 of them are now under contract. And we should go, I agree, one way or the other, to be consistent in what we're doing. And I understand you're talking about consistent with direction that was given.
Mm-hmm.
True? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, sort of.
Okay. And I'm saying that the consistency of what we have on the table, that we had 4 of the 6. But that's also water under the bridge now, so.
It's your prerogative. It's your employment arrangement.
So what changed your decision to do this then in less than 10 months? So, I mean, if this is what you guys voted on in April of 17.
It wasn't
we're just
voted
now-
It wasn't voted on.
Okay, but you guys.
And
came
I don't
across
know
as a
who
board.
advised 911. I didn't, she didn't. So I don't know where that came from.
I don't know, that was something Steve.
But he's
Well-
saying that you guys had had the discussion and he had given you the pros and cons of each back in April of 17. Well, we're just now in February of 18 and now all of a sudden there's a big change on it. So that's where I'm confused, if that's what was discussed and you guys asked for the recommendation back in April. So why all of a sudden a change 10 months later?
I'm just wanting to be consistent in what we do as the employees that work for the board.
But they
And-
were working here in April though, last year.
And they were under contract.
But how come on the FOIA request, there was no contracts and no memos that were produced and I have the response?
Oh, I have no idea.
It was sent by Dennis Mays from Raleigh and they said there was no memos and no contracts nor agreements.
On these?
Yes, that is correct, on Angela Knupp and Angela Cook.
No, I'm not, yeah, we didn't have those. What I'm talking about is the 4 employees that we have now, that prior to these 2, the 4 that we have were under contract, which was Tammy, Kevin, Jamie, and Grant.
But didn't you say they were under memos though?
No, those are under contract.
They're under
No, the
contract.
2. They're not under memos?
Yes,
There are,
Yeah.
and what you said is inaccurate. It was, the memos were
Yeah.
provided to Dennis Mays. Yes, they were.
No, they weren't. Dennis
Yes, they
has the
were. I
email.
have a copy of the response from the FOIA request, and they were provided to Dennis Mays.
It was the website that was copy and pasted as far as the salaries. That's what was provided to him.
And the memos. You want to pull it up, Tyler?
I'm looking for it, but I'll find it.
Well, to follow up for my question, why are some employees given protection on what their raises would be and some are not?
I can't speak for anybody else. My desire would be to put everybody on a contract basis because I feel like it's clear and it provides more security for the employees. We attract better people that way. That's my opinion. And I wasn't on the board the last time that decision was made, so if that's a swing vote, I don't know. But
No,
that's my position.
and I agree to that, and I was under the impression that you did have a contract.
No.
And again, that's up to the 911 board, but I take it your memorandum's for a year,
Mhm.
then,
With
Yeah.
no raises negotiated into it and no protection.
and that
They
needs,
could come in today and fire me.
and that needs to be discussed with the 911 board at the next time. That's up to them.
Can you enter into a contract at any time? Like, could that be remedied now, or do you have to wait till your memos?
It doesn't have a date, so.
I'm just saying.
And that's why I'm not a fan of memos, by the way, because it makes the employees too vulnerable. I realize it gives us the flexibility to do things that we want to do, but I don't think you attract top talent that way. And the county needs to be about that, so I can't speak for anybody else, but that's just my opinion.
I mean, memos favor us. And that's what Tyler indicated. That's- My original thought to that was, well, I agree with that. But the more I looked at it and understood that, you know, am I gonna go to Grant and say, you're not getting the contract anymore, we're gonna change you to a memo? Well, he'd go straight through the roof, I think. I don't know that for a fact, because I haven't asked him.
Then why not give everybody contracts so everyone's the same? We're back to
That's
some
what-
employees being treated one way,
That's
some
what
employees
we're-
being treated another.
That's what we're doing. That's
But
what we
don't you
just
have
did.
4 that's one and 2 that's another?
No, we just changed
We
it.
just voted on all,
Who are the other two?
Chris, 2 aren't
Ten.
expired, is what, their contracts, but they're not
and they have
expired.
contract. Grant, Kevin, and Tammy.
That's what we're doing.
And they're under contract, correct?
Yes. Tammy's just isn't up until I think next
If we
year.
go back in the minutes, there was a motion made to approve an employment agreement, is what the word was said for the motion, for both the administrator and the human resource, not a contract.
Okay.
The wording for the ambulance director and the assistant's contract was the wording.
They're all called employment agreements. That's what they are.
I'm just saying, those were the words that were used during the meeting. That's how
The
it
motion
came
needs
down.
to be the item that's on the agenda. So
Yeah.
we need to it is important what the verbiage is on the agenda, and it is important that the motions reflect the verbiage on the agenda. But I think it's all legally sufficient, but we need to be mindful of that.
Did they all say employment agreement?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying, Terry?
Yeah, on the agenda, they all say employment agreement, but in the minutes, when the motion was made for the first one for the county administrator, the words employment agreement were used
Employment
to
agreement.
approve the employment agreement. For the human resource direct position, employment agreement was used in the motion. For the ambulance director and the assistant ambulance director, contract was used in both of those.
So do they need to redo the
No,
two
but
ambulance people to say
it's-
agreement instead of
It's
contract?
fine, it's fine, you have the document, it's on the agenda, it's fine.
Yeah, go for it.
Is there any other business?
No, you were talking about committees. I did talk to Dirk about the cat. And the cat has been adopted, but he said that he did get it signed that anything that happened because of the photo shoot and all the publicity that would come from that, the county would be entitled to, even though the cat now is adopted. So that came up in question to me, and so I called Dirk and found out. Angie, that's what you heard, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what that is and how much and when it's gonna happen, if it happens, I don't know. I don't think that it's gonna be the savior of the county anyway, so. But it might be a little bit of money.
Yeah. Scott, you talked about an evacuation plan.
Yes, I think we need to sit down and talk as a group about that and formulate something. I think that, there's been some discussion about the active shooter intruder in the building training. We need to do that. I know I've spoken about that once before. We just need to probably formalize a training day and do it for the entire staff here. I think under OSHA we're required to do that. So, it's something that I wanted to do earlier, right? It's something that we never have done, but we need to do that. We need to work on our evacuation plan. I don't even know if there's an updated evacuation plan here for the courthouse.
When I very first took this position, that was one of the first things that I asked, is if we have an evacuation plan. I've never been able to get my hands on one.
I've got some
Even
models
have one.
downstairs that we've been working on. We need something for fire and something for bomb hazardous material and of course active shooter. We need to cover those areas for sure, and if anything else that you can think of that we need to cover, but I think that's probably the most important ones.
How long is the training what you would perform?
We wouldn't do the scenario-based thing. I don't know that there's a need to do that, but we do a presentation, probably about 45 minutes to an hour.
Could we do it twice in one day, so we can do like half employees and then the other half? I just don't know if we want to train everybody, I don't want to hold
I have to
office.
do that for the school.
Okay.
Because what we do is we come in and do the presentation, then we come back because they're limited on the amount of time. Because it's about a 4-hour block to do the scenarios. If you want the scenario training, we do it.
What does that
It's
entail?
basically having an active exercise where an intruder comes into the building and what do? You evacuate, do you hide, do you lock down, do you fight, what do you do?
Scott, along with
Those
that,
phases come into play too on that.
something we talked about several meetings ago is an accountability of who all's in the building at one time, because right now,
Well, that's another thing, because we need to talk about rendezvous points, once they evacuate, where we're gonna go, because the office holders, the department heads are responsible for those people. So when we come in to respond to a situation like that, we need to know who's still in the building and who's not.
absolutely. Because right now, you take right now, we don't know who all's in this building, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, and we talked about that, and shame on me, I'll take responsibility for that, for not acting upon it, or even, talking with you about it. But I mean, it's right now in the court, especially on court day, we have no idea who or how many we have in this building.
Right. So,
Yeah,
and you're
very
not
good.
gonna know everybody, because there's people that show up here that's not even on the court docket, that show up for court, so you're not.
No
gonna
way.
know. But from an employee standpoint, we need to have a comprehensive plan where
whoever's in charge of that office, even if something, God forbid, something happens to that office holder, who else is gonna be there to,
Very good.
so
That's very
we need to sit down and talk about those things.
Mhm.
Very good. Willing to do it, love to do it.
Very good. Grant, do you have anything?
I was gonna let the board know that we have the new unit park outside, everything's on board, we passed all the inspections with flying colors. We're waiting on one little widget in Springfield that I was made aware of after the inspection, so we overnighted the funds. Angie helped make sure that that check got cut immediately that morning, so we're waiting for them to turn that one piece of paper back around to us, and it will be on the road. So after the meeting, if anybody from the public or the board would like to see the unit right before it goes into service, it's parked outside.
Angela? Do you have anything?
No.
Scott?
Bob, I have one other thing I want to bring up. I don't know if the board's aware that we've lost 4 patrol guys to our unit. One through retirement, 3 have taken other positions, so we're crippled right now. We will be at the end of this month because the last 2 will be leaving the end of this month. I've replaced 2 of those positions, but I've had a very, very difficult time finding candidates for the job. Mayor Gordon Jim's back here, he's worked with me on getting the board together so we can try to push this through and find qualified candidates, but you know, if we don't, then we're gonna have to send them to the academy. That's another issue, all the academies are full. So it's a 14-week academy, so we're gonna be hurting if I can't find somebody that's ready and trained to go to work, so.
These two were ready, right?
No, one of them is,
Oh, okay.
he has to go, he was a part-time certified, which means he has to go through a transition course. So he'll do that in March. It's an 80-hour course, it's 2 weeks. The other, last one I hired is not, he'll have to go to the academy. I spent the afternoon on the phone Wednesday trying to get him in the academy. I think maybe I can get him in April. He'll have to go to Decatur to the training facility. The other 2, I don't know. Just to give you an idea of what I'm going through, we sent out applications to reply. We had 60 responses. I split the testing up into two different testings. I have one earlier this month or at the end of January. I'm going to have another one at the end of this month. But I had 60 apply. I broke it up in 2. I sent out 28 invitations for the first testing. 17 replied to that. 12 showed up. 5 passed. And then we did the power test last Saturday, which they had to go through a power test. 2 passed it. Only 2 showed up for that. So that's what I'm up against. And so I've got, I think, 12 on the list out of the last remaining, which would have been about 30 people that had applied. So I'm having a difficult time. I've talked to other sheriffs and chiefs and the state police. The enrollment's way down. Nobody seems to want the jobs anymore. And we've got other issues too with that. There's other, you know, I'm gonna be quite frank. I mean, I had one of them that I could have had, but he didn't choose it because our insurance is horrible when it comes to the family plan. You know, the city offers a good family plan, so I lost him because of that. And he was trained and ready to go. So I've got a big challenge, guys, so I don't know what's gonna happen.
I don't think he's gonna get to go over there.
Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna hire or not, I'm not sure, but I mean, that's what he was saying, you know, that's what he told me. If he had the opportunity, that's where he was gonna go, so I talked to him earlier this week, so. You know, my mission is to try to find somebody that's fully certified and ready to go to work, and they go through, you know, our training program and we cut them loose, but if I have to send 3 people to training this year, I'll be out this whole entire year rebuilding. That's my spiel.
Tiffany, do you have anything?
No.
You're ready. If it's all right with you guys, I'd kind of like to have an update on the union negotiations. Not right now, but we need to go into executive session if you can do that.
Do we do public comments first?
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. Are there any public comments? comments? Yes,
Bobby, regarding those figures that I emailed to you,
yes,
most of those things we already knew just from personal knowledge, people we talked to in the other counties and in the schools, how they handle their IT positions. So when Mr. Fowler's wanted it, made public, I did send FOIA requests on all of those to get it, make it legal and to get the specific amount. And I sent them to the schools, as you know, from the memo also, because they have comparable needs in the schools now with all their computer programs. But I guess Mr. Hawk had also sent FOIAs to all these counties, because when my responses were, someone else in Union County is interested in this too. So maybe that information is already available to you, but,
not to the extent that your information.
okay,
um,
okay.
And I shared it with Alex before the meeting, and I'll share it with the rest of the board.
Right.
I think for the most part, we're in agreement that Raleigh's position was, it was probably misclassified in some ways, that we, from the budget, looked as if we were spending $70,000 with total benefits for IT, when in fact it was probably much less than that from the job duties that he gave us that he was conducting. So we need to fix that regardless, because I don't think there's a reason that the county should be paying that much for specific IT work. Because he did FOIA and he did some other administrative things that fell outside the parameters of IT. So I think we're all in agreement on at least reclassifying that in the future, no matter which path we take. But I agree with some of the numbers that were given. I think that's appropriate.
Because many of the counties, those duties are elsewhere, those other duties. For example, most, and I would say, I haven't asked them, but I would say most office holders here would rather be the spokesperson for their department as opposed to having a spokesperson, those sort of things. And some counties don't have county managers. There's all kinds of issues there where the duties go elsewhere. But most of the places, as you can see for the IT person, it is much less, but as you say, there were other duties included in that. So, but anyhow, I just wanted you to know, it had been, apparently he requested FOIAs also from the county, so I don't know about that.
Yes.
So are the two Angies now under contract instead of at-will employees?
Yes, they are.
I have a question, Rob.
Yes.
This is my 2 cents. I wish the board would reconsider individualizing the IT per office. I just feel like that, nothing against Raleigh, but I mean, he had the whole building, and when we needed somebody, we did it really, really cheap. We shared it with 911, and I think between the two departments, back before Raleigh come on board, we were doing it for $2,500 to $3,000 a year, and all of our IT needs were being met. And I wish that maybe that would be a consideration, that you as a board just turn it back over to the office holders and allow them to address that, and maybe put that in the contract and let them, bid that out to whoever in the community that can perform it for this specific office. Because, we probably had some of the most technical stuff in the whole courthouse, and we were doing that with a gentleman that was very good and could keep our demands and requests up, and we run really efficiently. So I would just ask the board to at least consider that and think about that, because it worked. And I think we didn't spend a lot of money. I mean, you think about that in terms of the dollars that spent here, $2,500, and half of that was spent from 911, and so the sheriff's office was spending about $1,500 a year. So, and there's some great people out there. We had one of the best whenever, before Raleigh come along. I mean, the guy was great. I hated to lose him.
That's definitely a consideration, and of course, the circuit clerk gets part of theirs done through the First Circuit.
Right, the admin office in Sean Murray, so we don't pay anything for any, so Raleigh did nothing as far as with our computers or any of our maintenance. So he would maintain our phone lines, obviously, because it's through the courthouse, but even the circuit clerk is not subject to FOIA under my statute either, so there was no FOIA request. As far as that, I have a template letter that's approved through Supreme Court that I would send back to Raleigh. So for my computer maintenance, it's covered under the Supreme Court with the admin office.
Yeah, I think a system where we may pay a contractor or retainer to lower the hourly rate for departments and then just allocate the funds as need, it makes more sense than
Yeah.
what we were paying before. But if the department doesn't need it, their budget doesn't get hit, you know.
How are you gonna decide how much money each office gets for IT if you do that?
Good question.
Because you seem to be having a lot of trouble with this budget deciding how much people are getting. So how are we gonna throw that into the mix? Which I have some other questions on that, but I just throw that out since that's germane to this conversation.
I'm curious if Darren would have input about how the fund would work in that instance, because we'd be prepaying services to get a lower rate, and how is that allocated is a good logistic question. I don't know.
Did Raleigh keep a log on what he actually did, as far as computer IT work? And I don't know that he did, but,
Not that I know of. You mean like his time that he spent in each office?
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna assume, I don't know that.
No. But I would hope that those same companies that you liked and everything would bid when we put the RFP out to do IT for everyone, if that's the direction you go, for everyone, those good companies.
I don't know that would happen to the guy that we were using, because he has a full-time job. He works at Shawnee College. He's very good at what he does, and he did that for us just on kind of the side
Like a
work, part-time thing. But I mean, he was able to be very efficient. He was able to do what we needed him to do. I don't know that we ever really had a delay in things that when we were down or whatever we needed, he could accommodate us. So, I mean,
We had the same type of arrangement in our office as well. We had a person who had a full-time job, did that stuff on the side. Always, I mean,
Responsive though.
lickety-split when we needed something, low cost, someone you could trust. I mean,
Well,
but I get the budget situation. How do you allocate that line item?
I have some other concerns. If we have 4 or 5 different IT providers, there are a number of legal compliance issues that we have to deal with, and it just complicates things a little bit from my perspective. But
Well, I think this is all food for thought. I mean, obviously, we're gonna send the RFP out and see what kind of response we get. And,
don't we need to know what we're asking for in RFP though, before we send out an RFP?
well, I think Angie is working on that, are you not?
Yes, I'm trying to gather that information, is if that's the direction you guys are still going, to go ahead and get a quote for everybody.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. It has everybody, including 911, so.
Tyler, what's your concern about the legal aspect? You mean just
Well,
trying?
there are a number of issues. I mean, there are FOIA issues, there are HIPAA issues, there are security issues, there are any number of issues, and frankly, it's very hard to keep everybody in the county going in the same direction.
You think we're secure now?
Well, I don't know that I can really answer that question.
I
but
can.
I think I have some concerns. I mean, it's not my decision. I just think that's a
I
fact.
know, but I just want to point that out to you.
Yeah.
Now, we have a contract, like HIPAA law states, if you have a business agreement with anyone, that's a billing vendor, we even had our pest control people sign one because they're in our building. For privacy, if you have access to any portion of a business, you have to sign a HIPAA business agreement. Not saying that that will fix everything, but I'm saying that could be an option, that you can have a contract to where someone agrees that if they come across any type of protected information, that they're in agreement that that's non-disclosure.
I agree with that. My concern is if you have 6 vendors, then you have to do that with 6 vendors, and you have to make sure
Right.
6 vendors are doing everything correct. I'm
And that-
talking from the
yeah.
county's perspective
Right.
as an entity, which is, I think that can complicate things.
And
But
tracking,
I'm sure it can be managed. I just
tracking
think it's
access that
effective.
they would have to our systems too is much easier with one vendor than 6.
And
You
I
wanna
agree
know what
with
they're
that.
doing and when they're doing it. It's,
Yeah.
This is like the whole phone issue. That was something that we always handled in-house for our own agency. We managed all our cell phones and things like that now. You know, we don't, so it doesn't make me any difference either way, but that was just one more duty given to somebody else that we took care of in the past.
Well, and from a 911 perspective, in July, Raleigh suggested to the 911 board that we needed to replace 3 computers that were 12 years old. 2 of those 3 computers are still sitting in a box in my office today. And he told the board how unsecure the computers were. They were not being supported anymore because they're running XP. It was such an emergency, we bought them mid-year and they're still sitting in a box. I have a switch down there that's in a box that failed in October. So if we had someone that worked for our offices, maybe we could actually get our equipment up and going and keep it that way.
I would like to add on that point, aside from this discussion, my main concern from my office perspective on this IT situation is I have to have someone available at all times. And that is because our office, I mean, it's not to the degree of the sheriff's office in terms of, but we are using our IT in court and I mean, that's how our office functions. We have a paperless office, so it is very important, whatever is done, that we have somebody that's available almost immediately at all times, which I know is a concern downstairs.
I'm just throwing it out there, guys. I mean, that's my take. I understand, I understand.
Well, I don't think it's an overarching concern, I just think it's a consideration. My main concern is that, for my office, that it works. That's
Mine too.
Sorry, John.
You're fine. Get Mr. Banger, just discuss
Yeah, I have another question. As union steward, we're going into contract negotiations. You're talking about possible layoffs in this, that's what you said earlier about the budget, but then you changed and made them under contract instead of agreement until we get done with possible layoffs? Is that what I'm hearing? And with no budget right now? With possible layoffs in the budget?
Yes.
So how does that justify? I mean, how is that? I mean, because you're saying you want to keep everyone the same across the board, and if you're talking about possible layoffs, which, I mean, as we all know, it's my office and Terry's office. So
Well,
it's like
we already
protect.
had one layoff in the state's attorney's office.
I didn't know.
Also, yes.
Okay, well, they said only 2.
Right, well, we already, that went off the board
Who said only two?
immediately, that was off the table.
Who said only 2?
Well, that was in the past when we were talking on budget meetings. That's what was told to us, that there was possible layoffs of possibly 2 people.
I've never said that, I guess
No.
somebody else said it, because there's always been more than 2.
But
But you're
anyway,
wanting union people laid off first.
so we're gonna go with laying union people off and keeping the new creative positions in the
Your
past few
people.
years in, that are employed by the commissioners, but then go and start affecting the union contract. So how is that the same and keeping everyone across the board? When we don't have a budget, so no budget, but go ahead and enter into new agreements, voted on and passed them, but then possible layoffs.
Just so you guys are aware, the county administrator position was created in 2015, or 2013,
Right.
and the third position in the county clerk's office was created after that. So, just so you.
But there
everyone
has been
the correct
substantial raises
information.
for both positions this year, so, I mean, that also takes into effect of $5,000, $2,500 for each. So with no budget and entering now into agreements with them, but possible layoffs, I mean, how do you justify that as a whole as a county board?
That's
Because our
why,
workloads haven't decreased, if anything, mine's increased now with e-filing. So with not a decreased workload, I don't know how that's justifiable.
well, that's why we're going to discuss the budget, I guess, this afternoon.
I also want to make a comment on what Angie said. The third person that was put in my office was not just in my office, there was one put in the treasurer's office and one also put in the assessment office at the same time. So it wasn't just my office that was given an employee. And it was because of contractual obligation, union contractual obligation, using those employees were put
So those were all after the county administrator position was created?
Those were all, there was a grievance filed concerning the number of employees in the assessor's office, county clerk's office, and the treasurer's office. And I don't know, I could have to go back and look and see when that was. I'm just saying it wasn't just the county clerk's office. Those three were done at the same time.
And then at that time, the circuit clerk had the grievance too, because that's when we had a retiree at that time, and then the county come back, and that's when Lorraine won the grievance and got the position, because our contract stayed 7.
As far as we want to discuss it.
So since it's carried over, I mean, it'll be brought back at the next meeting that we'll get answers on it as far as with the budget and the layoffs and.
We're gonna discuss it this afternoon, probably, if I can get everybody here, so. It'll be an open session.
Okay.
Any other public comments?
Well, I have some questions and concerns about the budget. It's not clear to me, I mean, one, we're 2.5 months into the fiscal year with no budget. So it leaves the departments and the county as a whole without any plan as to what we're spending. So we might be spending at a deficit level. I don't know, because I have no idea what the budget's going to be for my office or for the county as a whole, which is the #1 concern. But I also have some concerns about how are the decisions being made about where the cuts are made as far as staffing. I'm not really sure that there's an objective measure being employed to determine this. And I was asked about a layoff or not filling a position in my office, and what I told the board was I need the position, but if you can't fund it, you can't fund it. And I think some other departments have not taken that position, and so those are still up for debate. And when I come in and try to be a team player, that's off the table. So I just have some concern that there's not an objective